If you're a human and you're listening to this, which I'm assuming you are, let me guess. You want to be liked by others, right? Even if it sounds like the wrong thing to be chasing and you don't exactly want to admit it, we as humans just have this fundamental need. We are hardwired to seek acceptance from others. I'm Lucie Fink, and I've made a career out of sharing myself and my lifestyle experiments with the internet. I've been a producer and an on-camera host since 2010 when I started making YouTube videos as an undergraduate at Johns Hopkins University, and I pretty much haven't stopped since then. It's always been my dream to work on camera, to communicate with people, to tell stories, and to produce videos. And in 2015, I joined Refinery29 to host and produce their video content. And because of my prior experience of being on YouTube, I knew a little bit about what to expect when it came to sharing myself with the masses. And that is, not everybody is going to like you. As I mentioned earlier, we humans are social beings with this innate desire to be liked. But the difference with a job on the internet or in the public eye is that most of the time in daily life, when someone isn't liked, they're not told it. If someone passes you on the street and is judging you, you might not even really know unless they make it very obvious. In fact, strangers are probably commenting on you all the time, and you just don't know. But the internet and the rise of social media is just a whole different world. All of a sudden, these comments are heard. They become currency. People are encouraged to drop their thoughts about you down below in the comments section in a public forum, and in my case, they're asked to do so just as a response to you doing your job, and you just have to deal with it. In fact, if you work for a media organization, these comments are encouraged. Most comments, no matter how hateful or hurtful they might be, are actually good for the algorithm. Now, don't get me wrong, when I started putting myself out there, 99% of all incoming commentary was positive, but the other 1% of comments were not positive. The first thing I started hearing from all of my family and loved ones was ignore it. You know, these are the people who cared for me the most in the world. They didn't want to see me get hurt by these hateful comments, so they would just tell me, don't listen to them, don't read it, don't let anyone get to you, just ignore the haters and move on with your life. But at the end of the day, that is way easier said than done. And it's pretty easy advice to give someone else, but it's a lot harder to implement that for yourself. The truth is, I was a bit bothered by some of what these people were saying. But above all, I was fascinated by these commenters, and I couldn't help but ask myself, who are these people? I just had this burning desire to know more about who these people were and what their actual motives are. How would they react if I replied to them? If they no longer felt like they were anonymously hidden behind their screens, what would they say? So I decided that instead of ignoring it, as my family and friends were suggesting, I would explore it. And I decided to conduct a series of experiments. So I tried responding to these negative commenters with positivity. Things like, I'm so sorry you feel that way, have a great day anyway, and thank you for watching. And after many of these experiments, I noticed a pattern developing. The people would generally react in one of three ways. Either, number one, they would delete their comment. And I assume their thought process for deleting it would look something like this. OMG, she saw what I said? Oops. Number two, they would reply nicely to me and they would actually apologize for making their comment. Something like, wow, I didn't think you'd see that. I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings. You were so nice to me and now I feel bad. Or number three, they would just double down and troll even harder. For example, yeah, you. A few things I learned from these experiments. Very few people are secret internet trolls. Troll accounts tend to be fake accounts that are set up purely for the purpose of trolling or harassing others. But most of these negative comments on the internet come directly from people's real social media profiles with their real faces and their real names attached to it. And it does actually make most of these people feel strange to be called out on their personal accounts. Next, in my case, most of these people didn't think I would actually see their comments. So I worked for this large media organization and they thought that they were sort of just commenting to my boss in a way and that I would never see it. The next thing I learned is that some people just like writing negative comments because of that whole community aspect around it. They want other people to like their comment and then agree with their comment. But if nobody at all engages with their negative comment, or if the person that they wrote it about responds nicely, they look kind of silly and they don't feel good about it at all. Fast forward to 2019, I left my full-time job at Refinery 29 and I decided to start my own media company, Lucie Fink Media. And the truth is, those negative comments got even fewer and farther between. I built a community that genuinely enjoyed my content, and those who didn't just unfollowed me. And then, in 2020, I came across one of the most aggressive internet trolls I had ever faced. So I posted a photo one day on Instagram, and in came this slew of negativity. Just one negative comment after another. I wasn't by my phone immediately when I posted it, so by the time I checked it, there were 20 to 30 nasty comments. And this wasn't constructive feedback. These were just mean comments from someone who just didn't like me for me. So at first I muted this person, but then I decided to just block her. I felt, I don't need that energy on my Instagram account. But there she was again. A new account popped up. 0 followers, 0 posts, no photo, same comments, incessantly attacking me once again. My first thought was, I can play this game with her all day. She can keep making new accounts, I'll just keep blocking the accounts. My mind was going back to the early days of YouTube when the advice that I had received from my friends and family was just block, delete, and ignore. Don't let them get to you, don't give them the time of day. But what did I decide to do instead? Naturally, I think I decided to do what anyone in my shoes would do. I messaged the troll and I asked her if she wanted to hop on a face-to-face video call with me. Okay, I know that's not what anyone in my shoes would do, but I'm not joking here. This was an attack like nothing I had ever seen before in my entire career online, and I was just so curious who this person was and if they would say all of this to my face. Would they even respond to my requests to have a video chat? Would they say no and just keep trolling me? Would they say yes and then troll me to my face? I really just needed to take my early experimentation to the next level here and figure out what a troll would do when given the chance to talk to the person that they've been trolling face to face on Zoom. So I sent a message to her and I said something like, "Hello, Sarah." That's obviously a made-up name. "I can see you have a lot of thoughts about me, and I think it might be more constructive if you shared that feedback with me directly instead of in a series of comments. So I'm really open to receiving feedback from my audience, and I would love to hop on a Zoom call to hear what you have to say." So I waited, and then I got a surprising response. She said, "I would love that." I took her email, I sent her a Zoom link and a calendar invite for the following day, and I prepared for the worst. Was I scared? Yes. You never know with the internet, and of course, you can't always trust strangers. So yes, I was a little scared. And I actually decided to record the entire Zoom call just so that I would have a record of it in case any threats were made or anything out of sorts was said. And I have that whole entire call saved on my computer. Of course, I would never share this woman's name or her voice or her face publicly, but for the purpose of this TEDx talk, I did look back on the call to see what happened. And here's basically how the conversation went. So we started out with a lot of small talk. We talked about where she was living, why she left home. She moved to a new city. She told me about her ex-boyfriend. We discussed how lockdown was feeling for each of us. And within 10 minutes, I cut to the chase. I said, "Let's be real, we both know why we're here." And she honestly started out by trying to explain her way through some of the negative comments she had left me. So she said, "I was just trying to help you." She said she wanted to help me sell more of my online courses. She said she thought she was being constructive. But by 30 minutes in, all of the fluff was out of the way, and this woman had tears pouring down her cheeks. She opened up to me that she was going through a serious mental health rough patch of her own. She had just gotten out of an emotionally abusive relationship. She didn't have a strong relationship with her family anymore, and she was struggling career-wise to figure things out. She told me that a lot of what I've been posting has been a bit triggering for her, to see someone who recently got married, someone who's in a stable relationship with their high school sweetheart, someone who's still really close to their family and friends, and someone who just really enjoys their career and feels happy showing up every day to do their job. She said all of that is just a little bit triggering to her, and she felt that leaving negative comments in my space, in my little corner of the internet, would potentially help her feel better about herself. And then she apologized. She cried and told me how bad she felt. Now, when I look back at some of the comments that she had left me in those days beforehand, it is kind of difficult to imagine ever speaking to this person in the first place, let alone forgiving them. But this call that I took with her did something to me. For the first time, I could set myself and my hurt feelings aside and instead just try to focus on understanding the person who had hurt me and trying my best to put myself in her shoes. So I ended the call by telling her that I was sending her so much love and that I didn't feel 1 ounce of hatred or anger towards her. I told her that I understand where her impetus to write a negative comment was coming from. And I told her that, I too often scroll through social media and I can feel triggered by what I'm seeing out there. For example, sometimes I think, should I already own my first house? How did that person get that partnership with that brand? Why is everyone always traveling to Bali? Of course, stuff on social media can be triggering. But it's what I do when I find myself in those situations and the thought patterns that I have, that's what differs from what she had been doing. I either close the phone and go live my own life, or I push myself to leave a positive comment. Even if in the moment it feels like a negative comment is what's gonna make you feel better, I find that writing something kind usually makes me feel even better and more connected in the long run. So what has happened with this woman since our Zoom conversation? Well, I've since unblocked her. She now occasionally leaves pleasant comments on the content of mine that resonates with her. But the goal of this interaction was not to convert one troll into a loyal follower, because at the end of the day, we cannot and we must not make it our goal to ensure that everybody out there likes us. My goal with this conversation was simply to connect, to hear somebody out, to identify with them, to set aside my feelings and my ego, and to try to understand where somebody else might be coming from. This interaction confirmed for me what I had truly thought was the case all along. And that is, almost nothing that people say to you, positive or negative, has much to do with you. And this goes for online interactions as well as interactions in real life. Everyone is just acting and reacting to the world around them based on their current beliefs and circumstances and situations. And you can probably identify with this. So imagine you're driving your car, you're having a great day, the sun is shining, you're very happy with your life and your job, and then someone cuts you off in traffic. You probably don't care too much, right? But now imagine that you're on the way home from a job that you absolutely hate, and you have to get home to do something that you don't want to do at all, with a partner that you're not happy spending your time with, and you just know that you aren't going to have an enjoyable night ahead of you before you have to get back to the job that you hate the next morning. But you're still in a rush to get home, and then someone cuts you off. That is when the road rage begins. So I had spent my whole career up until this point being told to ignore, to silence the haters. And don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting here that we all give internet trolls or even real life bullies a larger platform and more of our attention and energy. And I'm definitely not planning on setting up Zoom calls with all of my future trolls that will inevitably make their way to my little corner of the internet at some point down the line. But I actually remember when I first heard Brené Brown say about internet trolls, quote, "If you're not in the arena also getting your ass kicked, I'm not interested in your feedback." And I do identify with this quote greatly. There is a little part of me that just wants to suggest that we just block, ignore, and delete these people who are very clearly not in the arena. But by giving this one troll the time of day, I actually learned a huge lesson. And that is, you just never know what other people are going through. Of course, if you're spewing hate speech or if you're preaching violence and intolerance, then you are likely the problem. But if not, I think it's valuable to learn firsthand and to truly internalize that what other people say about you is most often not a reflection of you. Getting on that Zoom call was one of the most nerve-wracking things I have ever done. I still remember my heart thumping before we joined the call and all of that nervous energy that I had pent up inside of me. Why was I giving this person who was very clearly not in the arena the chance to share her feedback with me? I was disobeying Brene, but that call changed me, and it helped me feel more human and more connected than ever. It helped me become a stronger communicator. And I always said, I want to work in the communications industry. And if that Zoom call was not a clear example of human communication, then I don't know what is. Instead of silencing all of the negativity, actually listening to some of the noise and working to understand its origins has helped clarify some things in my mind. It's made it a lot easier for me to show up every day and to continue to do the job I love. It's helped me identify what's worth listening to in the first place and what is actually best for us to just throw out the window and ignore. And if we all lived our lives remembering this, remembering that everyone is going through something, remembering that we don't have to take everything we hear so personally, remembering that we have the ability to communicate and connect, we might all feel a little bit freer, show up a little bit bolder, and be a little bit kinder. Thank you.